Welcome back to 5 Acres Honey Farm. I'm Tara Lynn and I am at 5 Acres Honey Farm West today. So I'm just west of Bryson City in western North Carolina. If you've been following for a while, you know that I've been having a really horrible small hive beetle infestation here at the 2 colonies that I have set up. And I've been trying everything. I'll link to those other videos where you can see all the different methods I've been using. And about 3 weeks ago was the last time that I had checked on these hives, and it looked really, really bad. And I had very low expectations for them, and I was preparing to potentially move them back to where I spend most of my time in Chatham County. And so they actually look really, really good. There's still a small hive beetle problem, but it's not to the degree that it was. So usually this time of year you just see it getting worse and worse. So seeing an improvement was a surprise and also promising. So what I did notice is that they've actually consumed more nectar, and I guess I should say honey, because that's pretty much all they had stored. They consumed a lot more than I expected in the past few weeks. And they do have okay reserves for some of the winter, but I would like them, excuse me, to have a little bit more. So I made some syrup this morning. That was the first time I've made syrup in a really long time. I really don't remember the last time I made any syrup. And I've always made bee tea, and I'll link to a video about bee tea. This is also the first time that I haven't made bee tea in years since I started making it. It's just straight sugar syrup. So bee tea is not that, it's not an abbreviation of letters like it's used in organic gardening. It's actually B-E-E and then tea, like you drink, T-E-A. And usually I'll put a bunch of herbs in, and I'll make, instead of using a water base, I use the tea as a base for making the syrup. However, I didn't bring any of those ingredients with me. I do have some herbal teas that I do drink here, but I didn't want to utilize that because I didn't really want to take the time to research if some of those herbs were okay for the bees. But instead, they're just getting regular sugar syrup, and this is kind of better than nothing at this point. So I'm going to be feeding them the next few days while I'm here. And then I also made a sugar brick, which I'll link to a video about how to make that. Those are also known as candy board. Because the temperatures are going to be dropping really soon, and I want them to have that as a reserve, and that also helps with controlling moisture in the colony as well. So the last day that I feed them, I'll be taking the feeders off and putting an extra medium on top and putting the candy board on top. But my other video should have that set up in there. Yesterday I went through both colonies. Both queens have stopped laying. I found both queens. Everyone looks really good. So now it's just making sure they have enough food, and they've got, with the leaves falling now, they're getting a lot more sun exposure, so that will help keep them warmer this time of year. One thing that, just as a reminder to folks, and it's also a reminder to myself, so you can kind of see I've got this rock set up in here. So I remember now, I totally forgot about this, but this feeder, it has somehow some holes in it here, and I remember last winter being really disappointed when I opened up the feeder to refill it, and I saw all these bees like dead in here because they get in and they don't know how to get back to their colony. So I had intended over the summer, when these aren't being used, to actually repair it, and I never did. So this is a reminder to take a look at all your equipment this winter and do whatever repairs needed. So what I've done for now is just a short, since I'll just be using this for a few days, I push this in as far as possible, so getting that kind of tight in there. And then I'm gonna, right before I put the syrup in, I'm gonna just stick that rock in there. And there isn't enough space for the bees to get through there. I'm just hoping the bees don't get together and push that little boulder right through. There might be a little spot here actually, but it might be okay. We'll see. My fear last year was that the queen would wander up here and get stuck and die, but hopefully that won't happen. And I'm gonna get these on the colonies, and then we'll see how much syrup they eat in the next day. But it's the pretty view's coming back now that the leaves are gone. I just added the feeders, and when I did, I noticed that this colony, I just added this extra piece of trim here because I noticed it wasn't really creating I'm trying to find the right words. It's been a really long week. It was a little too level. It needed to be unlevel to help the feeder bring the syrup closer up front. And they're looking really nice here this morning. It's a really, really beautiful weekend in the mid to high 70s. And these girls are busy too. And I already set up the mediums here, so we're not expecting any rain. So that way, when I'm done with the feeders in the next few days, I can remove them, put that medium on top, get that sugar brick down, and then they'll be good for a while. And I'm hoping, I mean, I might peek in there a little bit, but they, even just in the past day, taking the top cover off, they've already done such a great job with propolis. I really don't want to put them through too much more effort right now as it's getting colder. So I'm going to try and not bother them too much and just make sure they have the food that they need, and then they can do their thing. When I started beekeeping, I was part of the Certified Naturally Grown program, and I still practice all of the same requirements that the program has in place. However, I don't have the bandwidth right now to have the annual peer inspection, which is not only getting my hives inspected annually, but also I would then need to either inspect another CNG certified apiary or a CNG certified farm, whether it be produce or mushrooms or some other producer. And since I don't have time for that, I still practice that way so that when I do get back into the groove of the inspections, I'll be able to just kind of jump back in. But I'll show you what I'm doing right now, which is, so one of the requirements for the program is that 20% of your comb is removed every year. And the idea then is that within 5 years, all of your comb is less than 5 years old. So you never have comb that's really, really old and nasty. So I think I've shown in other videos before how different the appearance is of comb that's the same age, just depending on how the bees are using it, and also like how much you're, keep putting it back in the hive. So let me show you what I'm doing. I just stuck the knife in here for a moment. So this was just wire foundation that had been in here, and I'm just cutting around it, and then I pop out the actual comb. So this comb, I know many folks like to melt it down and do things with it. I don't want to deal with melting it, so I do offer it to other beekeepers, and right now no one wants any that I've asked. So instead, I was going to compost some of it, and then in a pile where the metal wires wouldn't be an issue. But I'm still deciding what I will do with it. But as I was cutting this out, I had left like one of these out here, and I went to go get some more frames, and then there were some bees on it in just the few seconds I was gone. So I moved it over there. I didn't realize it was full of nectar. I was just so focused on getting it cut out. So now the bees are kind of gathering over there. They're checking out some of these frames. And so these frames, I don't have these marked, and I remember the year that I didn't mark some frames that I had to like kind of throw them in the colonies was 2018. So I've gone through all of the frames that I have inside, and anything that has no marking on it or that has 18 on it, I'm cutting those out, and then I'm going to be using the frames, so they'll be looking like this. They kind of still have like a starter strip of wax up here. These are going to be put in the colonies in the spring, and then I will mark these with 2024. This actually said 18 on it. It's really faded on there. I just saw it in there. But so then in 5 more years, I'll be doing this with those frames, and that way they always have some fresh comb. But you can see how dark and old this looks. But I have some frames just from this past year that are dark like this, that are only a year old. But then you also have these frames that are the same age, and it's this pretty golden color. So this may have been a frame that I didn't have out there for all 5 years. It might have just been out once in a while. It's also what they have available when they're building the wax, how they're using it. Is it just for brood? Is it for nectar and all that? But yes, so this is a really great way of making sure you have some fresh comb. And why would you want to do this? So as the bees are, now this is where in natural beekeeping there becomes a little bit of controversy. So I don't have like any kind of measuring tools in here, but if this was used for brood over and over and over again, the cells actually get smaller and smaller because there's little casings that are left behind each time brood develops. And for folks that practice treatment-free beekeeping, many of them will tell you they want really old comb because it's smaller cells. You could also purchase small cell foundations so that the bees automatically create small cells, but those don't allow they don't allow as much space. And so it's easier for bees. Gotta see if we have someone checking out this one. This one's empty, girl. It helps reduce varroa populations. And I forget if it's whether, we can take a look at this girl while I'm explaining this. I forget if it's related to having an easier time for the bees to detect which brood have varroa, and they'll abort that before the cells get capped. Or the varroa don't go in there because there's not enough space or something like that. So there's one camp why you would want your old comb. The reason why you really don't want your old comb is that any kind of pesticide exposure, herbicide exposure, any kind of contaminants that the bees were exposed to when they built the comb, and over all those years, if there were spores, bacteria, any kind of nasties, if you're thinking of that, we got some more girls checking this stuff out. Any kind of nasties, that's gonna sit in here, and then that could damage your future colonies. So this just helps reduce those risks of having that kind of negative exposure. You know, it's you know, you can't say for sure is that going to be an issue, but at least you know that you're preventing that long-term contamination if there is something present. So you can kind of decide for yourself which approach you'd like to take, but those are two of the perspectives. So now all of these frames are frames that are retired, they're old, and they all, I mean, some of them have a little bit of wire left in them, but there's no more comb. So in the spring, I'm gonna mark these 2024 as I start to put them out on the hives. I've got my 2021 and my 2022, some 2023 frames over here. These are all 2019, so these are gonna move into my swarm traps next spring. And so this time next year, these will be cut up and moving down there. And I haven't organized these, but these are all fairly newer frames, so I didn't bother taking them out of the boxes so they could just stay in there, and then as I need a box, I can just throw it on and it's ready to go. So yeah, this was, the previous owners had this as their kids' room, so they stored kid toys in here, but it's actually the perfect height because I can stack, this actually was supposed to be up like this, but I could stack 2 layers of frames in all of these for mediums, and that's awesome.